Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. It says, "For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved is the power of God." The question I want to ask you guys today is, why? Why Christianity? Why do you follow Christ? Why do you live a Christian life? And with all the details of it, why do you come to church? Why do you read the Bible? Why do you bother to keep yourself from sinning? Why do you bother to not do anything extreme? Why do you bother to keep the commandments? Why do you try to discipline yourself with prayer, with a life of prayer, with devotions in the morning? I'm especially talking to those of us that have been raised in the church, that kind of already know all the whole pattern of what it means to live a Christian life. And to you, I ask you why. Why do you pay tithes? Do you do all these things? I mean, God promises blessings. He promises blessings for paying tithes. He says, "Test me, and the rules of heaven will be open." But even though God promises blessings, those blessings are gifts. He gives them out of His mercy. We have to remember that the blessings that He gives us, we do not work for it. The stuff that we do, the life that we live, the life that we lead, does not earn us the blessings that God gives us. So why do we do it? When you keep the commandments, why do you do that? And sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that the reason why we're Christian, the reason why we follow Christ in this difficult path is because there's a blessing at the end of the road. Because we're working towards an end. We're working towards a blessing. We're working towards heaven. But when you ask yourself, why are you doing this? Are you doing this for the benefits? Are you doing this for the blessings? Are you doing this for heaven? Are you doing this for life? And I want you to think for a while. To imagine that maybe when you give tithes, it will not come back to you. When you give tithes, you will not be blessed. When you keep the commandments, there will be no blessing that comes out of that. Your life, you won't live a longer life, you won't live any better than anybody else. When you care for others, they will not repay you. When you give your tithe, you will not be repaid. When you love your neighbor, they will take advantage of you. Think of that for a moment. When you turn the other cheek, you will get slapped again. When you follow Christ, you will get persecuted. Why are you doing this? Why do you follow Christ alone? And for those of us that have been raised in the church, you should know this by now, that the Christian life is not about prosperity. It's not about getting rich. It's not about bringing in all the blessings. It's not about living a good life. Living a Christian life is about following Christ's example. It is about following Christ's example all the way to the cross. It is about following Christ's example all the way to the slaughter. Following his example all the way to suffering, all the way to death. The Christian life is about sacrificing yourself. It is about failing deliberately. It is about dying. It is about walking towards your own death. The Christian life is about following Christ's example. I want you to look at a crucifixion, a picture of a crucifixion. Put it up there. Painting. And you look at Christ. This is just one of the many, right? When you look at Christ, and what exactly do you see? What exactly do you see when you look at the cross? Let's go over 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. It says, "For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of God." Let's change that. And so, change back to the picture. And so when you look at the cross, it says that to those that don't understand that's foolishness. But to us who are saved, we see deeper than that. Do you see deeper than that? I want to go to Romans 9:33. It says, "As it is written, behold, I lay on Zion a stumbling stone, a rock of offense, and whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed." A stumbling stone. And if you read the verse before, it says, "Because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law, for they stumbled at that stumbling stone." So there's a confusion that the crucifixion, the death of Christ, there's confusion of how people interpret it. Because when you look at the cross, you see failing. What do you see when you look at the cross? Do you see Christ ruling over his enemies? Do you see Christ smiling, jumping for joy? Do you see Christ with a beautiful wife and kids and a big house and lots of money? What are we looking towards? What do we admire in life? Is it Christ on the cross? Do you see Christ the scholar? Do you see Christ the scholar, the graduate student, the college graduate, grade A student, straight A's? Is that what you see? Do you see Christ with a trendy, popular girl? Do you see Christ, the trendy, popular girl in school that everyone loves? What do you admire? What do you see? What do you admire and what do you see when you look at Christ on the cross? Do you see Christ with sunglasses and chains around his neck? Whose example are you following as you're living your everyday, your day-to-day life? What do you admire? Is it Christ on the cross? Do you see Christ with lots of women and fame? Do you see Christ with a nice car and a good career? Look at the cross. Look at the cross and tell me, what do you see? Look at the cross and tell me if you see any of that. I dare you. I dare you to look at the cross, to look at Christ straight in the eyes and think of how much you want the latest pair of shoes. I dare you to look and think of how much you would pay for the next iPhone that comes out. I dare you to look at Christ and be excited for the Black Friday sales. I dare you to look at Christ straight in the eyes as He's dying. As He's dying on the cross. As He's dying on the cross for you. I dare you to look and think about spending time with your boyfriend or girlfriend. I dare you to see Him. I dare you to look at Him as you see Him taking the pain and misery that you should be going through. Imagine Christ looking at your eyes. Imagine you seeing Him in your eyes. And as He's staring at you, you can feel what He's thinking. That pain that He's taking is supposed to be yours. I dare you to stick your hand in the fire. Because that pain that Christ is suffering is pain that you should be going through. And how can you think of all these things when you see Christ on the cross? When you see Him taking that pain for you, that pain that should be yours, and for you to be able to see what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. If you could take that pain yourself, what would you be thinking about? If you stuck your hand in the fire, would you be thinking about all these things? Would you be thinking about, your grades in school? Would you be thinking about whether your career is going the right way? I dare you to stick your hand in the fire and think about the Christmas gifts that you're going to want this year. How serious is your life with Christ? How serious is your everyday life with Christ? And when you think about this, when you look at Christ on the cross, you realize that even if you're vegan, even if you're a third generation SDA, even if you read the devotion every morning, pray before every meal, etc., give your tithes, I am still as vain as they come. And for some reason, when I look at Christ in the eye, I can't live with that. How serious a Christian are you? The Christian life is about following Christ's example. What do we learn from His example? If we really want to live like Christ, we have to live with that greatness, with that determination. Are we following Christ's example? We have to live the way Christ lived. When you look at the cross, what do you see? How did He live? What example do you get from that? Like a lamb to the slaughter. That's how He lived. But why did He live like a lamb to the slaughter? Like a lamb to the slaughter out of His love for humanity. Now, living like a lamb to the slaughter. I should clarify that a little bit, because this does not mean that you have to play the martyr. Some of us, we sacrifice ourselves, yes. But in the end, we're like, we kind of like make a sacrifice, but then we want something in return. We want acknowledgement. We want recognition. And it's okay for the first few times if we don't receive it, but it starts building up. And then we start getting discouraged, sometimes even angry, sometimes we're judged, because we're not getting that recognition that we crave. And just think for yourself. Think of everything you have done for the church. And how does it make you feel? Does it make you feel elated? Does it make you feel like you deserve something? Does it make you feel like people should be looking at you a certain way? Jesus never craved attention like that. He never even bothered to qualify himself in front of his own disciples when his disciples misunderstood. And even in these days, even after saving the world, he does not ask for recognition. Instead, he allows his humble, inadequate, cowardly servants misrepresent him in our own pathetic way. And just to let you guys know, whenever I preach, whenever I write a sermon, I'm always thinking about my own experience. So it's not like I'm judging anybody here. This is just myself. This is just my preaching professor who said, preach to yourself and let others hear. So I'm just letting you guys know the stuff that I do. But Christ doesn't ask for recognition. He's so humble about what he did, even these days, you know. He's not coming out himself and saying, hey, wake up, look, man, I died for you, you should be doing something about it. You should be acting in a certain way. This reminds me of a story that I was told by a pastor. I was riding with him to El Centro. He's in the Hispanic world, so I don't know if you guys know, but he's Pastor Robinson. And he told me a story once of a bridge operator who he was in charge of making sure that the bridge was open and the bridge closed when the train needed to go by. And he was at work one day, and because of certain reasons, he had to bring his child to work that one day. And he got an emergency call because there was an unexpected train coming in the way that the bridge was open, and he got an emergency call. And like while he was taking care of that, his child walked off, and he was like looking for his child frantically because he didn't know where it was. But at the same time, he had a response to the call which said, "You have to close the bridge because the train is going to go through." And then he sees the child, and it cracks between the bridge. And so he has two choices. Does he leave the bridge open and have many passengers die because of his mishap? Or does he close the bridge, killing his child in the process to save many people? Of course, some of us would think that he would be selfish to sacrifice that many people for his one child. He probably thought the same thing. And so he killed his child. But the interesting part is this. Here's when you're able to relate to how God feels. That as the bridge closed and this child died, he saw, in his agony, in his emotional agony that he just lost his child, he saw, as the train was passing by, the passengers of that train completely ignorant of what had just happened. Nonchalant, going about their business, not recognizing the sacrifice that he had just made. That man gave up his child so that these people could live. and barely anyone recognized him. How do you feel when you learn, when you think about the fact that God has given His child for us? Is that already, have we already grown accustomed to that? But, Jesus does not ask for any recognition. He gracefully allows us to take a sacrifice for gratitude. But there's that we have to do. We have to recognize that. But this does not mean we have to recognize Christ on the cross. But this does not mean commit suicide. This does not mean whip yourself to suffer. If you want to follow Christ's example, it doesn't mean that you have to whip yourself all the time so that you're feeling the same pain that He is. This does mean that you do what you know is right at any cost, regardless of the reward or lack thereof. If there is no reward for living the Christian life, if there is no reward for living the Christian life, you live the same way. Because that's what you're walking towards. That's the example that you're trying to follow. Why do you live for Christ? Do you do it for the heavenly rewards? Do you do it to be saved from the fires of hell? Do you do it to see your family again one day? Your loved ones in heaven? Or do you do it because life on earth is too terrible? If you have that in mind, just realize that as you are following Christ, as you are carrying your cross throughout this life, you are walking yourself to the slaughter. Realize that as you are eating the bread and drinking the wine of communion, you are making a soul pact, a somber pact. You are making a blood pact with the man of sorrows. It's funny because some people say that if you drink the wine and eat the bread without reverence, you become cursed. Bad stuff will happen to you. Sometimes, I remember when I was younger, I used to be scared of that. So I wouldn't drink the bread and the wine because, I don't want bad stuff to happen to me. But I think now, as I've grown up, I think every time I take communion, I think of, whether you're reverent, whether you have reverence or not while you're taking the communion, you are setting yourself up for suffering either way. Whether I am ready or not, I accept the suffering either way. I feel more concerned about those people that are afraid to take communion and they decide not to because, their unwillingness makes them not ready to take communion. It's just their unwillingness to go through that. It takes, because if you think about communion, the process takes care of itself. Those who take it will suffer either way, and those who don't, well, they're just fleeing from suffering. Now, I have done a lot of somber speaking, so let me clarify the matter with this. Because, I've said enough about how suffering is important, about following the example of Christ means suffering. But there's a reason behind this. And I'll explain that with this scenario. Or with this question. What is the role of a king? When you think of a king, when you think of a royal family, what is its role? What kind of life do they live? Think about that for a moment. A royal family. Now, what does it mean to live like a king? Our non-royal culture tends to focus on the perks of royalty. The lush life, the power, the fame, the glory, the admiration from everybody. You get pampered, You don't ever have to you even have to lift a finger, and people will come to your aid, even before you need it. Is this an accurate life of a king? If this was the only aspect of a royal life, there would be no need for kings. So answer. So try to answer again. Why does a king get such treatments? And it's because of this, because of the responsibility that has been placed on him. He is assumed to take on things that no one else can take. That's a lot of liability. He has to take care of his people. He has to be powerful. He does not only have power, but he has to use that power wisely. And everything that goes wrong is blamed on him. If there was a king, now picture this, if there was a king who accepted the royal life, but did not accomplish his duties with his power, with the power that has been given to him by the people that he rules over, what would happen to that king? He would be overthrown. So that, like living like a king, it has its perks, but it also has its responsibilities. And if, that life that you think about, when you think about the life of a king, that, you only have the good but not the bad, that's not a good type of king. That type of king, if you had that type of life as a king, you would be overthrown. Now, with that in mind, think about you yourself. What do you think life is like for divine royalty? For the children of the king, for the children of God? That's us. We are divine royalty. We will be given a crown. If you think that it's going to be just harps and clouds with angels in the sky, if you think that it's just going to be animals and laughter and spending time with your family and, enjoying the sight, is this accurate? Is this a good way to describe what life is like for a king? We are meant to be conquerors, strong. We're not meant to be spoiled softies. When we think about royal family, we think capability, we think ability, we think conquerors. We don't think like softies that just get pampered, that just get spoiled, they just get taken care of. Heaven is not like that. We are not there. We are not in heaven for the goodies. We are there because we have fulfilled the duties that God has given us. Because we have fought. Because we have conquered. And I want to bring up this quote from Ellen White. And it's Steps to Christ, chapter 2. It says, "It is no arbitrary decree on the part of God that excludes the wicked from heaven. They are shut out by their own unfitness for its companionship. The glory of God will be to them a consuming fire." Can you handle that? Can you handle God's consuming fire? It says, if you want me to explain it in simpler English, it says that God did not just make an arbitrary law that says, okay, these people get to go to heaven and these people don't. The people that do this get to go to heaven and these people don't, because they didn't do that. God doesn't just decide who goes where. It says that the wicked, they are shut out by their own unfitness. The wicked exclude themselves from going to heaven because they are unfit for its companionship. They don't want to be, the wicked do not want to be close to God. The glory of God will be to them a consuming fire. That's Ellen White. And I want to ask you this. Can you handle that? Are you ready for that? When you look at the cross, are you ready for that? We don't go to heaven for the goodies. We go to heaven because we have fulfilled the duties that God has given us. Because we have fun. Because we have conquered. Now look at the cross again, but this time, look at it with ambition. Look at it as somewhere you wish to be. Something that you need to conquer. A goal of walking your cross, of taking your cross, carrying your cross and stuff. Have that be your goal. And may you walk yourself to the slaughter with love in your heart and fire in your eyes.